What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Officer Training School. My name is Joshua Joushi Howard. I have a crick in the neck, and we're going to be talking about Ogryn today. So, as usual, we're going to be talking about a lot of the basic things about Ogryn. We'll talk about the basic ways to play them, how you're generally going to be equipping them, and then we'll talk mostly about how Ogryn are just kind of there. They're cheap all-rounders that kind of do a little bit of everything. We'll talk about the orders and stratagems, and then a couple of tips and tricks about these guys in order to try and help you make the best use that you can out of them. So, firstly, Ogryn are cheap. They're currently 60 points at the time of the recording of this video. They actually went down from the summer to fall or whatever on the last data slate. So they used to be 65, now they're only 60. But here's the thing. Ogryn aren't like super good at anything, which is pretty unusual for things in the guard. Most things in the guard are pretty specialized at what it is that they are able to do, but Ogryn aren't super good at anything, but they're pretty okay at everything. And then when you combine them with a Chimera, they become a 130-point Vulcan Mega Bolter, which is the kind of gun that you put on a super heavy. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, Ogryn are love, Ogryn are life. They're just cheap. They do whatever you want them to, and that is why they're such a good unit right now. So let's talk about how you equip them. You don't have any choices. You're going to take your Ripper guns, and you're going to like it. Moving on. So in general, if you're planning on running Ogryns, most of the time you're going to be running them as 3-mans. However, there are a couple people currently experimenting with 6-mans. Most recently, Chris Mullen went 4-1 at GaleCon 2024, and Manway from Spain is running 3 units of 6 at the 2024 World Championships of Warhammer, so it's obvious that they have some play. However, we're going to be mostly focusing on how you're going to be playing 3-mans in this video. We'll talk a little bit about what you can do if you are trying to run 6-mans. But for the most part, you really value these because of how cheap they are rather than for, just bringing as many of them as you want to, because they are still something that are, anything that's going to kill a 3-man is generally going to be crippling a 6-man anyway. So let's kind of get into it. One of the major things about Ogryn that make them really valuable is the fact that they are annoying to remove, because Ogryn sit in the weird middle ground of chaff don't kill them and everything else is overkill. If you're going to be shooting at them with your unit of guardsmen, or even like a 5-man unit of scions, or of tactical marines, or charge them with like 5 assault intercessors, you're not super likely to kill the entire unit. You're going to do some damage to it, probably, but you might kill a guy, maybe 2. However, everything else that you shoot at them is going to massively overkill them, which is really annoying. A couple of stubbers are not going to do anything, but if you put a whole Leman Russ into them, they are super, super dead. And that's really convenient because they are so cheap, you can use them as tools in order to get trading processes started. Because they're only 60 points, you can put them out in harm's way in order to do a secondary, or put them on an objective to try and deny it from your opponent. They are really obnoxious to try and take off the table for everyone else. The flip side of that is that Ogryn do a surprising amount of damage. They're not going to be doing crazy amount of damage. You're not going to be calling up your grandma to say, hey guys, you won't believe what my Ogryn just did. But it's pretty easy to get every Ogryn model into a position where each guy is getting 6 shots at 5-2-2 because they are the closest enemy. So each Ogryn is generally going to kill a bit more than a Marine when they shoot. And when most like 5-man Marine units are already 70 to 80 points, or more if you're looking at things like assault intercessors, Ogryn are still trading up if every single one of them just kills a Marine by itself. Because of this, Ogryn are a really cheap and efficient skirmishing piece in no man's land, so if you need to just like remove a couple dudes from the middle objective, Ogryn are a great piece for that. Big note here is remember that the bonus AP is model by model, so every model in your unit needs to be shooting at the closest eligible target in order to get that bonus AP. Doesn't come up very often. It's pretty easy to make this happen, but just keep that in mind. It's not by the unit, it's model by model. Additionally, Ogryn do a surprising amount of damage in melee. Even though Ogryn are going to get torn apart by anything that actually has melee threats, like assault intercessors with a character, Death Company, Custodes, whatever, it doesn't really matter. They're going to beat up Ogryn really efficiently. But anything that doesn't have any of that melee threat, you can nuisance charge into vehicles and units with close combat weapons like Scout Marines and Guardsmen, and these things are not going to be killing the Ogryn back. A lot of them are going to be wounding Ogryn on 5s and 6s, and with no AP, even though we don't have a great save at a 5 up, you still have to chew through 9 toughness 6 wounds a lot of the time. Which is going to be very obnoxious for anything that the Ogryn is charging into. It's also worth noting that Ogryn charging something like Guardsman is going to be doing the same amount of damage as a unit of Bolgryn will. or at least the same size unit a Bullgrin will. Because the difference between 712 and 611 doesn't matter if you're punching things that are toughness 3 and 1 wound apiece. So if you would want to charge a 3-man unit of Bullgrin into it in order to try and kill it, you can do the same thing with Ogryn. Okay, next, let's talk about the 130-point Vulcan Mega Bolter. So, a couple people were kind of asking me what I meant by this, and this is something I'm borrowing from Nick Jagiello. And what the Vulcan Mega Bolter is it is the 20-shot heavy bolter that you put on top of, I think it's a Storm Lord, whichever one of the super heavies has the 20-shot heavy bolter. But 3 Ogryn and a Chimera get 18 shots with the heavy bolter effectively. It's a little bit shorter range, yeah, and not all of it has sustained, but it's still a lot of output for only 130 points. And a major benefit to having the Chimera full of Ogryn is that the Ogryn Ripper guns are technically being shot by the Chimera, which means that they have lethal hits against vehicles and monsters because the Chimera has the squadron keyword. In a practical sense, what this means is that having the Ogryn inside the Chimera is going to double the Chimera's damage into any vehicle or monster. You can see an example of this on the right as damage versus the Leman Russ. It's still not a lot of damage, but if you add in things like Fields of Fire, an Exterminator, Withering Hail, or a Hellhound removing cover, you're actually going to be doing significant damage to things with the just raw volume of heavy bolter shots that you're putting into things. And it's also pretty good at just killing Marines because of how many heavy bolter shots you have at damage 2. And lastly, I really want to drive this home because it is the main reason why Ogryn are so good, is that none of what I've said so far is that enticing individually. However, Ogryn can do all of that, and they're super cheap. And so what I generally find myself doing when I have Ogryn in my list is I'm using them as problem-solving units. Do I need something to stand on my home objective? Fine, 60 points of Ogryn. Sure, I'm missing a little bit of damage in a skirmishing unit on the front line, but now I'm not worried about my home objective being stolen from the enemy. Do I need them to run around in chimeras and make their shooting actually meaningful? Yeah, it's totally fine. It's only 60 points. Do I want them to charge a tank line so they lose a turn of movement? Yeah, absolutely. That's totally fine. It's 5 more points than doing it with a unit of Catachan. Do I need to do containment or sabotage in a spot where I don't want to be using a Leman Russ or a Chimera to do it? Yeah, totally fine. Ogryn, once again, can do that. Because this unit is so cheap, it is very, very effective at just running around and doing whatever it is that you want the unit to do. And the fact that it is not good at anything, but okay at everything, is just really appealing because of how little you're actually spending to get it. So let's go ahead and talk about the orders and stratagems. In general, you don't give Ogryn orders very often because 1, they're usually in transports, and 2, they only listen to Lord Solar because commissars can't give them orders, and Lord Solar almost always has something better to order than these Ogryn. However, if you are going to be doing it, the ones that I found myself giving to Ogryn most often are Duty and Honor. This one ends up coming up just because it changes how often you're going to be scoring, right? If you can deny your opponent 5 primary by making your Ogryn OC2 or taking it away from a vehicle, that's going to come up and it's going to be relevant. Next, Take Aim is slightly more damage output with Take Aim than with First Ring Fire, Second Ring Fire. But this is also one that you're generally not going to be giving to the Ogryn themselves. You're going to be giving it to the Chimera that they're driving around in. It's once again worth noting here that move in order to get these Ogryn within 9 inches is going to be more damage output increase than you would with either Take Aim or First Ring Fire, Second Ring Fire. So if you go the difference between being within 18 inches to being within 9 inches, move is your best damage output increase. That said, move, again, you're not often giving it to the Ogryn because they're very oftentimes either just running into a transport or getting out of a transport. And so you oftentimes will give this one to Chimeras as well. It is worth noting here that disembarking from a transport is basically equivalent to move as long as you aren't getting caught on walls. So Ogryn can oftentimes be thought of as moving 9 as they're disembarking from a Chimera. So for the rest of them, First Ring Fire, Second Ring Fire is less damage on average than Take Aim. Fixed Bayonets might be okay if you're charging into Guardsmen or Cultists, but again, you have to find a way to do this in your command phase so you can't be in a transport. I actually don't hate Take Cover, but giving this order is generally so low on the priority list that I've never actually done it. But if you can put Ogryn in cover, being wholly within a terrain piece, take them from a 5 up to a 4 up and then a 3 up in cover, it actually makes them reasonably tough to remove, especially because a lot of the things like las guns are going to go from doing maybe a little bit of damage to functionally nothing. For stratagems, grenade. Yeah, they have the grenade keyword. A lot of people ask this. I like to think they're actually throwing a rock. You use it a bunch. It's a great way to finish off something with a good save or an invul, or to kill a Terminator or something. It's just a great way to just do a couple of wounds to something. Rapid Ingress. So this is the major one that I actually think is being used to make 6-man units used effectively. I haven't seen this in practice, but the major thing about this is if you rapid ingress 9 inches away, you move 6, and then you go pew pew with 6 guns, which gives you 36 heavy bolter shots at 522. That's pretty cool. The other thing, so a brief note on another way that I've seen 6-man Ogryn used is if you just hold them behind a wall, waiting for your opponent to get close, and then you run out at them and then shoot with all of the shots that the Ogryn have. That's another way I've seen them have some success, but it's very reactive, which I never like letting our opponent dictate the game plan to us. Heroic Intervention. This is actually one that I've done fairly often. It's mostly a way to prevent people from getting all of their good swings into target that matters by preventing pile-ins. So imagine that you have like a unit of Chosen charging a Leman Russ. You can use Heroic Intervention on the Ogryn in order to tie a bunch of models up so that they are not actually putting those attacks into the Leman Russ. And it's effectively a way to keep the Russ alive for an extra turn. Other way that I've seen this be useful is your opponent charges onto objective, so you use Heroic Intervention in order to put the Ogryn on the point so that you still have enough OC to control it after your opponent kills whatever it was that they were killing in the first place. Other notes, Insane Bravery is kind of cool. Go to Ground and Suppression Fire are okay. Like, they don't come up that often. And it's worth noting that the only time Ogryn benefit from the Fields of Fire stratagem is while they're in a Chimera, because they do not have the Regiment keyword on their own. So they cannot use Fields of Fire, they cannot be used to proc it, nor can they benefit from it. However, they do benefit from Hellhounds and Exterminators, because those aren't keyword locked. Okay, let's talk about a couple of tips and tricks before I let you guys go. The number one most important thing that I generally see with Ogryn, you're going to be pairing them very often with a Catachan and a Chimera. The Catachan will start in the Chimera, and they will scout 6, and then on turns 1 or 2, depending on when you need to disembark the Catachan, you will take the Ogryn, they will run inside the Chimera, and suddenly, this is where the Chimera Bolter Buzz really becomes valuable. If you want more details on this, I would really recommend checking out the video I did with David Gaylord in one of my Coach Gaylord videos, and I will put a link right above. Another fun tip and trick, you can advance and fall back, and then shoot while you're embarked. The main reason that this works is the only terms and conditions that Fire Index says about whether or not you're allowed to shoot something while it is embarked is A, it did not shoot already this turn, and B, you cannot shoot one-shot weapon. This means that if you advance and get into the Chimera via embark, or fall back and embark into a Chimera, you can still shoot. So it's a way to effectively fall back or advance and shoot with this unit when you might not otherwise be able to. So again, before I let you guys go, I really want to hammer this point home. Ogryn can do anything you want them to, but they don't specialize at anything. If you really want something to be good at whatever it's doing, Ogryn are not the unit for you. And honestly, it's really uncommon in the Guard because almost all of the units that we are bringing have dedicated roles. And this is something that has dictated the way that I have built lists for a long time, is having units with dedicated things that I want them to do. However, this package, the Ogryn plus the Catachan and Chimera, are 3 units that do have things that they are a little bit better at than other things, but they are so cheap that you kind of don't care if they do something else as long as that thing that they're doing is valuable. They're good at putting OC on a point. They're good at doing a little bit of damage to something. If you need to create a screen, we can take care of it. But even at the thing that we said Ogryn are good at, being skirmishers, they're not quite as good as Khazarkin. They just cost half the points. So whatever you have your Ogryn do, it's okay as long as it is getting something done because of how cheap it is. If you're interested in seeing what else is on the forefront of the Guard meta, I'd recommend taking a look at the link that I have down in the description where I have my Ko-fi page. It is, of course, pay what you want. If you want to get it for free, you're welcome to do that, but anything is appreciated. And, of course, thank you so much to everybody who has been a member of the channel. It is still wild to me that there are people who have been members of the channel for as long as they have. You've definitely seen people in this YouTube video who are Discord and channel members have their models shown in the channel. And of course, if you are a member, you get special access to things like the List Doctor and part of the Discord where we talk about upcoming content that we are working on creating. Overall, this is generally how I've been using Ogryn and also how I've seen it used effectively by other players as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Josh with Joushi Howard. We've been talking about Ogryn, and we'll see you guys all next time. Bye-bye.